All right, today we look at two different passages, a short fiction text and then a short poem. So this one's called 2 Years Before the Mast by Richard Henry Dana. So I'm going to say straight up that I think this is a terrible passage. And so if you struggled reading this, don't worry. It's not just you. Also, you'll notice the nautical theme carries on from the last one where we got a lot about ships passing mail. So this is an account of someone who spent 2 years on a ship. We know that from the title, right? Before the mast, it means a ship. And it's got a lot of detail in here that you probably were like, I have no idea what this is talking about. So there's a lot of description of what he's wearing. There's a lot of description of the ship in general. And as I skimmed through it, I see that they've got a voyage from Boston round Cape Horn to the western coast of North America, meaning they are sailing from the East Coast down all the way around South America to the western coast of North America. So this, for me, places it somewhere in like the early 1800s. And there's not a date on this, so that's just my best estimation. And I'm also guessing it has something to do, maybe even the 1840s with the gold rush, because I know that that was a popular route during the gold rush. So whenever I'm pre-reading, I'm always trying to bring in that context. And I know that I, as a teacher with someone who has a degree in history, I'll have more context than you will. But anything you can pull in from your own knowledge will be helpful as you try and read this passage. All right, let's take a look at the questions. The first one asks you to summarize the author's frustration about his first journey at sea. So A, I was no doubt known for a landsman by everyone on board as soon as I hove in sight, meaning everyone saw him and knew this guy doesn't sail on a ship. So that one's possible. B, with all my imperfections on my head, I joined the crew. Now that one doesn't seem to talk about the journey. It just, he knows that he's not going to have all of the things right because he's never done it before. There is not so helpless and pitiable an object in the world as a landsman beginning a sailor's life. Now that seems possible, right? Because you don't know what you're doing, you're pitiable into the world, and you are starting something that you've never done before, which would be a very frustrating situation. And this was literally bidding goodnight to my native land. Again, that doesn't seem to be about his frustration. So the question is he more frustrated about people seeing him as a landsman or being a landsman? And I would say that the best answer is that he's C, feeling helpless and pitiable because he doesn't know what he's doing. 25. How does paragraph 1 contribute to the development of the overall text? As always, let's pull in paragraph 1. All right, so the question is, which of these helps contribute to the development of the text? So which one does it do best? Vividly describes the setting. Now, for a vivid description of setting, you would expect like a description of what he's seeing. And there's not a whole lot of that on this first passage. It just gives you some place names. They're hoping that you'll choose this, though, because you see those place names and you think, oh, that's the setting. That must be it. But the word vividly means that that one cannot be the right answer because it's not a vivid description. B, it describes the motivation of the narrator. Well, let's look. So I'd undertaken it from a determination to cure by an entire change of life, by a long absence from books and plenty of hard work, plain food, open air, weakness of the eyes, which made me give up my studies. So he's got this problem that he can't keep studying. It's making his health bad, so he has to go out and try adventure. So that one seems possible. C, it links the main characters to the plot. Nope. There's one main character and there's no plot in this at all. And D, it provides background information about the ship. It doesn't even tell us much about it other than it's called Pilgrim. So B, explains the motivation of the narrator. 26, what does the phrase full sea rig mean in paragraph 1? So it says, I made my appearance on board at 12 o'clock in full sea rig with my chest containing an outfit for a 2 or 3 year voyage. So let's see. The name of a sailing vessel. That is not it, because the sailing vessel is Pilgrim. We know that because it's written there in italics. The name of the ship's captain, that's also not a proper noun. It would have capital letters for any of those things, so no. See, a part of the ship's deck. Now that's possible if you don't know what sea rig means. So that is an answer that I could see you getting tripped up on. or D, a uniform worn by sailors. If you go back and read the sentence with that, so I made my appearance on board at 12 o'clock in a uniform worn by sailors with my chest containing an outfit. That makes the most sense. So we're going to go with that. Okay, the next one is a logic question where you can logic your way through it without knowing the answer. What is one way to identify a beginning sailor? The beginner has a lot of checked shirts. I don't think that sailing has anything to do with the clothes you are wearing. Like, you can look at a sailor and say, oh, that man has a lot of shirts. He must be a sailor. So that one doesn't seem to work at all. The beginner has sunburnt cheeks. Well, no, if you've been out sailing a boat for a long time, you would have sunburnt cheeks, not a beginner. And same thing with toughened hands. That's the opposite. That's someone who has done it for a long time. So untanned skin, that one makes the most sense. 28. What was the difference between the authors and the Old Salt's first night on watch? Now, if you don't know the phrase Old Salt, that is, it's from the idea that when you're out at sea, you're around salt a lot, right? The salt water, so you become salty. And so it's a phrase that refers to old sailors, the Old Salt. So what's the difference between their first night? Now, let's pull in the passage so you can look at it. So the narrator was a green hand. Yes, we know that green hand means that he's inexperienced. And too afraid to walk about the ship, but the Old Salt walked fore and aft. Now, the narrator says that I walked regularly fore and aft. So that one is incorrect just based on the details from that part of the passage. And B, the narrator wore his clothes like a green hand, but the Old Salt's clothes were peculiar. That one is also not correct. It doesn't talk about the clothes so much. I think it uses the word peculiar in the passage, but it refers to the actual narrator's clothes. C, the narrator stayed awake all night, but the Old Salt went to sleep. So we know that he couldn't fall asleep, right? I called to take my place, stowing himself snugly away. And then the Old Salt shows up and then stows himself and takes a nap because he was at anchor in a safe harbor. So we know that's true. The narrator was a sufficient lookout, but the Old Salt was better. That's probably true. That's more of an inference, but this is a direct from the passage question. So you want that one. The narrator stayed awake. The Old Salt went to sleep. And what made the Old Salt so carefree upon his takeover of the watch post? A, the fact that he was inexperienced. Again, no. Old Salt means that he's very experienced. B, the fact that the ship was anchored in a safe harbor. Says that. Good. Let's keep going. The fact that he knew others would assist him. It also does not say that. I mean, that's, again, probably true, but it doesn't say that. And D, the fact that he felt everyone was afraid of him. I mean, the narrator's a little bit afraid of him, but that is not something that the passage says directly. So B is the best answer there. All right, question 30. What is conveyed when the narrator says they began beating down the bay in paragraph 4? So the sentence is, the next morning was Saturday, and a breeze having sprung up from the southward, we took a pilot on board, hove up our anchor, and began beating down the bay. So it sounds like what's happening in that sentence is they are ready to go. There's a little bit of a breeze, so they get ready and they start heading out from the port. So let's look at the choices. The crew is fighting large waves. It doesn't say anything about that. I think they're hoping that you look at the word beating down and think that the waves are big, but it doesn't say anything about waves. The ship started moving in the water. That seems right. The crew was swimming vigorously. No, there's no one in the water. And D, the ship was in danger of sinking. Again, that one is not true. That's just a straight up, what does the passage say question. And 31, what strategy does the author use to bring the new young sailor to life? So this question is asking about the techniques the author uses in order to bring life to the passage. So A, the use of first-person narrative. Now, this is told in first person, so let's hang on to that one. B, the use of third-person narrative. Remember, first person is I, so I went and I did this. Third person is the young man went on board the ship and he did this. So it's talking about someone as if they are watching from outside of the person. That is not correct. The use of quotes and dialogue. There are a few here and there, but it's primarily told in narration and not dialogue. Get rid of that one. And the use of memories and diaries. While this is a memory, right, he's writing it at the end of his experience, that's not the primary focus. So the use of first-person narrative is the best choice for that one. All right, and then we move on to the poem, The Coming of the Spring. So scanning this poem, you immediately see there's a lot of seasonal language. If we know it's about the coming of the spring, If we take that literally, it's the change from winter to summer. So you're going to see a lot of imagery of things going from dead or cold or buried in the snow to alive and blooming. So that's what I see on pre-reading immediately. Let's take a look at the questions. All right, the first question asks you about theme. So which lines from the poem provide the strongest support for the theme of renewal? A, there's something seems to say that winter's had its day. That one's more about ending than beginning, right? So renewal is more about the start of something. So that one is possible, but it doesn't seem to be the best fit. And the elder branches show their buds against the snow. That one's just talking about a detail in winter. So silently but swift above the wintry drift. Again, that's about winter. And D, we see the bloom of birth make young again the earth. That's renewal. So while A is an okay answer, D is a better one. How does the first stanza contribute to the meaning of the poem? Let's pull the first stanza in. Remember, stanzas are poetry paragraphs. So this is the first paragraph of the poem. So there's something in the air that's new and sweet and rare, a scent of summer things, a whir as if of wings. So which of these is how that contributes to the meaning of the poem? It introduces the idea that a difference can be felt all around. So that seems to be true, right? That you can feel the difference in the air. B, it emphasizes the fact that spring is coming later this year. It doesn't say that. So let's get rid of that one. It introduces the idea that the weather is constantly changing. Now that is true, but it's not specific enough for this passage. So let's get rid of that one. And it emphasizes the fact that this past winter has been harsh. It doesn't say that either. So the only one that really is supported is A. It introduces the idea that a difference can be felt all around. Question 34. What can be inferred from lines 5 through 6? So there's something too that's new in the color of the blue. So let's see which of these best shows an inference from that one. The speaker thinks the spring sky is filled with more white clouds than a winter sky. Now that one doesn't seem to be supported. So it's saying there's something too that's new in the color of the blue. It does seem like there's something in the sky, but if it's more blue, then there would be fewer white clouds. So that one we can get rid of. The speaker feels so tired of the winter cold that she hopes spring comes very quickly. That also doesn't seem to be supported. I mean, that may be true, but that one is not an inference you can make from those lines. The speaker thinks the shade of blue in the spring sky is different than that of a winter sky. There we go. There's something about the blue sky there. And D, the speaker feels so in tune with the weather that she can feel a change of seasons. I mean, that seems to be true too, but it's not as specific as C. All right, 35. Which lines reveal the speaker's contrasting perspectives regarding winter and spring? So for this one, you'd want to go back to the poem and ask yourself, what does the author think about winter? What does the author think about spring? And which of these lines best shows that? There's something too that's new in the color of the blue that's in the morning sky before the sun is high. That's just referring to the spring. And we want something that shows the difference, so we can get rid of that one. And though on plain and hill 'tis winter, winter still, there's something seems to say that winter's had its day. Now that one seems to suggest that winter is ending, but it doesn't say anything about spring specifically. And all this changing tint, this whispering stir and hint of bud and bloom and wing is the coming of the spring. So that one does talk about spring individually, and it hints about the coming of the spring. But let's see if D is a better answer. And tomorrow or today, the brooks will break away from their icy frozen sleep and run and laugh and leap. This one gives us specific from their icy frozen sleep, breaking and moving. So that one is the most clear change of weather. So D is going to be your best answer for that one. And 36, what does drift mean in line 30? Let's pull that one in. All right, so what does drift mean in line 30? So silently but swift, above the wintry drift, the long days gain and gain until on hill and plain. So I know that wintry drift usually is going to mean a big pile of snow, or like a snowbank. So is it a sudden movement? No. Cross that one out. A wild gust of wind? No. A large pile of snow? That seems to be right. Or D, a sloping mountain? Nope. Large pile of snow. So that wraps up the questions for this section. Make sure you mark everything on your correction form, and I'll see you in the next passage.